de Paul Bloom'la olan röportajımızı yayınlayacağız. Yine biraz kendisinden bahsetmek istiyorum. Kendisi şu an Toronto Üniversitesi'nde psikoloji profesörü ve Yale Üniversitesi'nde de emeritus kadrosunda profesördür. Biz onu bebeklerin ahlaki yaşamına yönelik çalışmaları tanısak da aynı zamanda haz, din ve işte sanat gibi alanlarda da çalışmaları bulunmaktadır. Society for Philosophy and Psychology'nin eski başkanı, aynı zamanda Behavioral and Brain Science'ın da eş editörüdür. Ve birçok farklı alanda çalışmaları bulunmaktadır. Ve yani röportaj açısından söyleyeceksem kendisi çok pozitif enerji veren birisiydi. Ve şöyle onun çalışmalarında hani dikkat çeken tarafı hani bence çok ince işlenmiş çalışmalar yapması. Yani çok böyle bloklar halinde değil de gerçekten hani zihinsel zanatkarlığının çok hissedildiği çalışmalar oluyor onun yazdıklarını okumak. Ve bu konuşmaya da çok yansıyan bir tarafıydı. Ve çok umut verici bir konuşmaydı ve bu yüzden kapanışta çok uygun olacağını düşünüyorum. Ve başlayabiliriz.
Görebiliyorsunuz değil mi şu an?
Evet, görebiliyoruz.
Tamam.
It's a good question. The field of moral research is very broad. I think some of the most interesting findings that I've come across are findings that involve babies. And I've always been struck by babies, sometimes before they could even talk, seem to show some fundamental understanding of right and wrong. You know, it's not so deep, it's not so rich. It basically involves favoring people who help or not liking people who hinder or wanting to share in an equal way. But it's there. It's there from the very start. And I would have never believed it. It just totally knocks my socks off. And then I guess on the other side, I'm struck by all of the demonstrations in moral psychology of, in a way, how morally stupid adults could be, how much we're biased by our own self-interest, by our own groups. There's study after study finding that if you frame something in a way that a certain moral decision would make you look better and get you benefit, and your enemy would look worse, then depending on whether you're you or your enemy, you get totally different moral intuitions. And people don't say, look, I'm doing this because I'm cynical and self-interested. They just feel like this is the right thing to do. And it's very hard to think neutrally and abstractly. And I think one of the lessons of moral psychology is that we may not be our best moral thinkers as individuals. We might do better as groups where, you know, my biases could counteract your biases and vice versa. And in that way, we get better and better. How do I value the future of moral psychology? Positively. I think these are great times for moral psychology. I think these are great times because we are bringing together all sorts of methods in a very interdisciplinary way. So we have people who are doing experiments with people all around the world, including children, including experiments with non-human animals. We have these great cross-cultural surveys asking millions and millions of people what they think about different moral dilemmas and looking how that affects how it matters whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're living in China or United States. We are studying the brain. We are studying the genome. We are using AI methods a lot more. And, you know, that's a way to address some very subtle questions about how much of morality is uniquely human. So I just find it tremendously exciting. Like I look at recent articles and I feel and it just blows my mind. And maybe other psychologists feel the same way about their area, but I think I'm right and they're wrong. This is the coolest. Oh. Sooner or later, I'm an optimist. I don't think there's anything stopping us. I don't think there's any point where we'll say, oh, we have to stop. We're not getting any further. So yeah, I'm an optimist. I'm very conscious about claims about how much we know now. I think they get very overstated. I don't think people like me have found the secrets of morality or anything like that. We're very far from it. But I think we're getting closer. I think we're making progress. It's a good question. I have collaborators. One of my collaborators is Julia Marshall, for instance, does cross-cultural work in Uganda and in European countries, looking at differences in development. I find this work tremendously exciting. It's another way of addressing the question, how much of morality is universal and how much of it varies? And it's very hard work to get done because you want to make sure you're asking the same questions of the kids in, Toronto that you're asking them in Uganda. And that's very difficult to do. But when it's done right, and doing it right often involves collaboration with other disciplines like anthropologists, you get amazing work. I think we have some really striking findings. Both the things that we all share as humans, but also some really interesting ways in which we differ. And you might not have thought that they differ. So, we were talking before about exciting research, and I think the cross-cultural stuff is really exciting. I would suggest that they read a lot, that they not stick to psychology, that they keep an eye on philosophy and anthropology, and these days, artificial intelligence, that and they also keep an eye on the world. So there's a lot of really good insights and ideas about moral psychology in discussions of politics, or in discussions of movies, or in discussions of, where to put traffic lights. There's so much. If you're ever stuck for an idea on what to study for moral psychology, just pick up the newspaper, go on the web, and see what people are fighting about. And there you see these wonderful examples of real acts of moral reasoning, moral signaling, moral defensiveness, moral imagination in the real world. So I would think that if I'd have any advice, I would tell people interested in the field to get their nose out of psychology books and look broader. It's very tempting for somebody who does moral psychology, any sort of psychology actually, to jump in with an opinion about a current issue. You're the moral psychologist, tell me about what's going on in Israel and Gaza. You're the moral psychologist, tell me what's going on in Russia, Ukraine. Who's going to win, Biden or Trump? You're a psychologist, you tell me. What's going to happen to the EU? What's going to happen to all of this? And I think we should shut up a bit, in that often ongoing issues are very complicated. The facts are unclear, and they are so politically weighted that the psychologists themselves tend to see there's a right side and a wrong side. And that distorts our analysis of the scene. I also think that we're such a young science, it's very rare that we have anything much to add that will help people in a practical way. So maybe, and this is an unconventional response, maybe when somebody comes to the moral psychologist and says, could you help us with this conflict between Israel and Gaza? We should say, why don't you ask us 10 years from now when we have a lot of thought about it and a lot of data, and then we'll tell you what we think. It's too soon. So that's my skepticism about my field.
Söyleşi bu kadardı. Bundan sonraki oturumda 14.30'da başlayacak. Yani bir 6 dakikamız var. 14.30'da görüşürüz.